All righty, everybody. Well, I have 6 o'clock on my computer, so I think we're going to go ahead and start getting started here. Well, thank all of you for joining us tonight for our first Spring Tree Keepers session of 2026. Thank you all for being here tonight. We're very excited to be working with you and seeing all of your friendly faces with us this evening, and hopefully we can all learn a little something about trees tonight. Um, yeah, so in case you don't know me, my name is Enzo Nagao. I'm the volunteer and development coordinator for Trees Forever, and I've been kind of running the Tree Keepers program here for a little bit now. But yeah, I'm very excited to have you all here tonight. Kind of how we're just going to go. I'm going to start off with a sort of brief introductory presentation, just kind of overviewing what Trees Forever is all about, what the Tree Keepers program is all about. And then we're going to bounce it over to Jeff Jensen, who will be playing a video of his covering tree biology, hopefully answering some questions a little bit after that. Then we'll be going over to Connie Cowan, who runs our organization over in Illinois, who will be coming out to talk to you guys about tree identification. And then we'll show you around our website a little bit and call it a night, if that sounds good. But just as a brief reminder for all of you, if you can, please keep your Zoom profile muted throughout the course of this presentation and make sure you communicate just through the chat function. That's kind of how we'll be talking to you guys tonight, just to kind of keep control of the sound and make sure everything works pretty smoothly, if that sounds like a plan. If at any point you have a question or any thoughts or even just a comment on anything, feel free to drop it in chat and I'll be kind of moderating throughout the presentation tonight and I'll answer those questions if I can. Otherwise, I'll spotlight them for our guest speakers to kind of talk more about in depth. All right. Well, with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and start my presentation. Bear with me one moment here, guys. All right. Hopefully you can all see my presentation here. All right. Well, welcome to Trees Forever Tree Keepers. This is today for Tuesday, March 24th, 2026. We are beyond excited to have you all here. So I'll just kind of start off by overviewing what Trees Forever is all about and what the Tree Keeper program is all about. So yeah, like I said, start with an introduction, talk about what it means to be a tree keeper, what that kind of entails, and then I'll turn it over to Jeff. We'll play a video where he'll discuss some of our programs and grants. He'll talk about tree biology, and then Connie will talk to us about tree identification. So, Trees Forever, we are a local nonprofit based in Marion, Iowa. We're a 501c3. Our mission, as you can see here, is to plant and care for trees and the environment by empowering people, building community, and promoting stewardship. We have a continued commitment to connecting people to the environment through the planting and caring of trees, prairies, and other natural areas. And we have operations all throughout Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. We were founded in 1989 by our fearless founder, Shannon Ramsey. We are based in Marion, Iowa, just off of 8th Avenue here in Marion, if anyone's in the area. We always encourage people to stop by and say hi if you're around, so don't hesitate to do so. We have around 30 staff members spread throughout Iowa, Illinois, and we're starting to make inroads into Wisconsin. We have many national projects that have gained recognition. The Relief Cedar Rapids project is one we've worked on very closely that I've heard has made it all the way to DC, and a number of other programs of ours that we run. To date, we have planted over 3.4 million trees throughout our operating area in the Midwest. We assist more than 200 communities and landowners annually through our various community assistance programs. We have over 7,000 volunteer encounters a year, which is where a lot of our work gets done. And we've awarded over $650,000 in grants with technical assistance for various communities and landowners. So partnerships is kind of a big thing that makes Trees Forever as successful as we have been. We definitely thrive and depend on our many partners. We have many connections and programs with the Iowa and Illinois Department of Natural Resources, various healthcare organizations, Unity Point, Mercy, that kind of stuff. Many different businesses and nonprofits in our operating areas have been great partners to us. Transamerica, for one, Collins Aerospace in the Cedar Rapids area. Microsoft has been a good partner to us in Des Moines. Lots of technology firms we've worked with in the past. Schools has been a big aspect of what we do, especially through our Growing Futures program, which I'll touch on a little bit later. Breweries, we have a lot of close partnerships with breweries in our area. Big Grove Brewery, for those of you who know that, has been a great partner to us. F&F, as well as Back Pocket Brewing, are good partners of ours. Utility providers, we have a number of programs that reach back decades with Alliant Energy, Black Hills, that kind of thing. Private landowners, and you. So, as our new class of tree keepers, our partnership with you is something we value very highly, and we hope that we'll be able to continue this partnership even after this course is done. So to kind of talk a little bit about sort of our areas of operation, I just wanted to bring your attention. So if you're in the Lynn County area, specifically the Cedar Rapids Metro, our great team here is standing by ready to help. And you'll probably see some of these people as presenters in coming sessions. Otherwise, if you're in the Lynn County area, you'll be working very closely with these people. But Molly Stolke, our Director of Programs for Lynn County, Ben Vaughn, who is our Urban Forestry Project Manager, James Partridge, who is our Corridor Growing Futures Coordinator, and Anu Doken, who is our Relief Program Coordinator. We'll work very closely with our volunteers and tree keepers once you complete the process. Conversely, if you're in the Des Moines metro area, we have a great Des Moines team out there. Megan Schneider is the Director of Programs out there. Helping her is Bianca Cook, who is our Des Moines Volunteer and Community Education Coordinator. Seth Adamson, who is our Des Moines Growing Futures Coordinator. Shayla Claiborne, who is our Urban Forestry Project Manager. So great team out there, and you'll be working very closely with these guys if you're in the Des Moines area. Other than that, we have a number of great field staff who are kind of spread throughout the Iowa and Illinois areas. So Jeff Jensen, who you'll be hearing from, is our Director of Community Programs. Brad Riphagen is our Iowa Program Manager. Aaron Carpenter is our Field Coordinator for the Northeast Iowa area. Kelly Waters is our field coordinator for the Southeast Iowa area. Connie Cowan is our Illinois program manager. And Bree Hull is our Illinois field coordinator. So if you're outside of sort of one of our main metro areas, then these folks are going to be the ones you're working with a little bit closely. So here's just a brief overview of our training, what it's going to kind of look like. So today is day one. And we're currently going through our introduction to Trees Forever. We'll be covering tree biology taught by Jeff Jensen and tree identification taught by Connie Cowan. Day two, which is going to be next week, Tuesday, also from 6 to 7:30 p.m. We'll be going over tree planting, tree care, and tree pruning. And then day three, a couple of weeks from now on the 7th, we'll be going over pests and diseases, tree benefits, and doing a bit of a wrap up and overview of what the Tree Keepers program is all about. So, as you are taking this class and learning all this stuff about trees, what does it mean to be a Trees Forever tree keeper? So, as a Trees Forever tree keeper, you will learn about tree care and the very different aspects of that. You will hopefully become a volunteer for us who can help Trees Forever plant and care for trees in your community, wherever that may be. We hope that you'll be providing a voice for the trees in your community as well. Advocacy is a big component of what what we hope tree keepers will do. So we hope that with the tools we give you, the knowledge we give you, you'll be able to carry that knowledge elsewhere. Assisting Trees Forever field staff at different plantings. We always need trained volunteers, and now that you've gone through this process, we hope we'll be able to see you out there helping us with different tree plantings, depending on where you're at. We are currently working on a number of different in-person field days and engagement opportunities for you guys to get to put your skills into new practice, so you'll hear more about that later. And we encourage you as tree keepers, once you've completed this progress, to take the initiative, organize tree plantings and care days in your community, organize groups, different things like that. We are here to support you with anything we can. So we hope that you'll consider if there are trees in your neighborhood, your street, even your house that need some help, Now that you've learned all these skills, we hope you'll put those into practice. Throughout the year and way after this course is done, we'll have a number of educational workshops available online, usually, sometimes in person too. So keep an eye on our events page for more information on that. I'll go over that towards the end of today's presentation. So for some examples of projects you can organize, watering is always something trees need. So feel free to water on your own or with friends to support established trees. Our staff are always working hard to make sure all the trees we plant are watered, but we could always use help with that. So that's something you could look into. Otherwise, kind of general maintenance stuff. So, like weeding, removing grass, mulching around trees is very helpful for keeping those trees insulated when we get into the winter months, or otherwise, just keeping trees maintained and making sure they can get established pretty well. Help recruit other tree keepers. So if you know anybody who you think might get a kick out of this program or might be interested in learning more about trees, we encourage you to spread the word as best you can and build your networks out so that we can have a network of environmental stewards throughout the Midwest who stand ready to help with trees whenever possible. Trees Forever and our partners with the DNR, we have a number of grants available for people looking to do tree planting projects. So absolutely apply for those as they come up. And like I said, tree advocacy is a big part of what we do. So here's a quote we generally like to talk about. Every oak tree started as a couple of nuts who decided to stand their ground. So it all starts with you. Iowa was originally 20% forest coverage. Today it's down to just about 4%. So really every person we can get planting trees out there is going to make a meaningful difference in restoring Iowa, Illinois, the Midwest tree canopy, which constantly see threats in the form of weather, pests and diseases, all that kind of stuff. So we hope that with the skills you have learned here, you will go on to do great things for the environmental field. And yeah, be at any city or municipal government entities that you work near, feel free to report problems as you see them. If you see trees that are starting to wither, starting to die, have sustained damage, contact your local Parks and Recreation Department or Forestry Department to let them know. Kind of be the eyes and ears for your local trees. And day-to-day interactions, just as you're talking to people, as you're going about your business, if you find people who are like-minded or interested in the environment, seek support from them, build a network, find out what other communities are doing and share that with your local network, your neighbors, your government, anything like that can help. We also encourage anyone to talk or write to an elected official. Let them know that you support tree care efforts in your community. That's a big part of in the Cedar Rapids area. The Relief Cedar Rapids program got started with a lot of groundswell support. Also, the 1 Million Trees Initiative in the Des Moines area in central Iowa. All of these big initiatives to replant trees started because we had popular support from people who wanted trees back. So we definitely encourage that. And feel free to, if you feel up to it, address the mayor or your city council annually to stress the benefits of trees. We just really need help getting that message out. And we hope that with everything you've learned, you'll be able to assist us in that. And build relationships. Really, that's what Tree Keepers is all about. Just building a sustainable community of people who are tree huggers, for lack of a better term. I think we all can agree that the environment is important here, and we hope that as you go about your daily life, you'll start to form groups, start to form communities that coalesce around the cause of planting trees. Trees need champions, after all. So that is a very broad overview of what Trees Forever is all about, what the Tree Keepers program is. I'll go into more detail about this during our last sessions, but really what we hope is that you'll walk away from this knowing a little bit more about trees, how they work, how you plant them, how you care for them, and we hope that you'll just kind of carry that on into your daily life as you can. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop that in the chat. But as you do those, I'm going to start setting up Jeff's video here. Bear with me one moment. Can you all see a video on your screen right now? Okay, perfect. All right. So without further ado, here's Jeff Jensen, our Director of Community Programs, who's going to talk to us briefly about Trees Forever programming and some of the information about tree biology.
Okay, I think we are ready to go. Aluminum, linoleum, aluminum, and we're going to go live in three, two, one. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Jensen, Director of Community Programs with Trees Forever, and I am really excited to be with you tonight to start your Tree Keeper journey. Just a little bit about me and my role with Trees Forever. I manage our Iowa and Illinois field staff, implementing planting projects, working with communities to strengthen the urban canopy, and facilitating community planning through the Visioning program and our partnership with Iowa State University. It is verified. I am a little nuts. I grow hazelnuts on my farm in north central Iowa, and I'm active with the Iowa Nut Growers Association and the Northern Nut Growers Association. But enough about me. Let's get on to the reason that we're all here. Let's become tree keepers. So just
Is audio not coming through? Hold on. Let me rewind it a little bit. Sorry about that, guys.
It's coming through, Enzo.
Okay.
and I'm active with the Iowa Nut Growers Association and the Northern Nut Growers Association. But enough about me. Let's get on to the reason that we're all here. Let's become tree keepers. So, just a real quick run through of a couple of our programs before we start on tree biology. I wanted to mention Black Hills Energy. So, this is an opportunity that communities that are clients of Black Hills Energy they can apply for funding of up to $5,000 to plant trees in the right of way and in public spaces of communities. There are some instances where they will allow for some private property planting, but this is a great way for energy efficiency to retree and recanopy your community. The application due date for Black Hills is November 1st. So reach out to one of our field coordinators to learn more about the program and to get an application filled out. Another program at the urban level that we have is the 1 Million Trees Initiative by Alliant Energy. And so again, this is for communities that are served by Alliant Energy, and those grant amounts, again, from 1,000 up to 5,000. Plantings can only be on public property for the Alliant programs, and this is both available in Wisconsin and Iowa, pardon me. And again, for plantings on public property. Also, we're looking for a really solid energy efficiency tie with these projects. So looking to actually shade buildings to provide that energy efficiency benefit. Also wanted to talk about the Illinois Community Canopy, the ICC. This provides technical assistance with small-scale inventories, doing ordinances, tree board, applying for Tree City USA. There's grants that are available for public tree planting, public tree removal, and community tree inventories. So be sure to check out the funding page on the Trees Forever website. Again, the plantings need to be on public property, but that makes sense. We're looking at right-of-ways in parks, things like that. Some really enticing opportunities. You have to be eligible. Your community has to be eligible, and we do have an eligibility link where you can check to see if your community is eligible. But that's a great program that I'd highly suggest you highly get involved with. So then we have accelerating agroforestry, and this is something new that we're doing here for the next couple of years, really helping landowners discover some of those agroforestry practices, getting out there and doing some outreach and education around those agroforestry opportunities and highlighting producers that are actually doing it, and then exploring some of those different perennial crop options, whether it's the elderberries or honeyberries, maybe it's the nuts that you're interested in, whether it's pecans or pardon me, chestnuts or hazelnuts. We're going to be doing a lot of that work. And our very first event's going to be coming up here on June 6th, the first Saturday in June. We're going to have a farm crawl where we're going to hop on a bus and we're going to visit 3 different farms in the Iowa City area. It's going to be a rocking good time. We'll be visiting the honeyberry farm, so they'll be ripe and you'll have an opportunity to taste the deliciousness that is honeyberries. So stay tuned for that and check out our Trees Forever calendar for more details. I guess the question at this point is, how will you work with Trees Forever? Okay, let's talk about tree biology. I'm going to be starting this off. Oh, a little jumped ahead there with a quick overview of some of the different parts of the tree that we have here. Certainly, we want to be sure that. I'm sorry. I am all sorts of messed up here. Yes, tree biology. We're going to take a deep dive into tree biology, anatomy, and physiology. And so let's get on with this model here and some terminology. So this diagram shows this deciduous tree. So again, that's a tree that loses its leaves. At the top is going to be the central leader, which is the single branch growing straight up from the trunk. Then you're going to have all the branches and the leaves. Now, collectively, we call this the crown of the tree. And then, of course, there's the trunk, and that's going to be the main stem. Drip line, and that's just where the line where the ground under the outermost edge of the tree's crown. So that's where the rain is going to drip down into a kind of a ring, you could say. Looking at a tree from underground, you have the roots. Now, if your tree was grafted, you're going to see the graft union, which is you can see it because that graft union is oftentimes maybe discolored a little bit or a little bit thicker. But whether you have a grafted tree or not, you should be able to see the root flare or the collar, which is where the trunk thickens as it becomes root underground. And speaking of underground, this is where the roots are, obviously. Roots are underground, so when we plant our seedlings or we plant our trees, certainly roots always go down in the hole. Let's talk leaves a little bit. The leaf is the part of the tree where food is produced through photosynthesis. It's also where the gas exchange via stomata allows the intake of carbon dioxide and the release of oxygen. Another primary function of the leaf is transpiration, which regulates temperature and then facilitates mineral and water movement throughout the plant. Looking at the parts of the leaf, we have the tip, then the blade, and the veins, and they're all connected to the petiole, and the petiole is connected to the branch or stem. And your hip bone's connected to your leg bone. No, I'm just kidding. So finally, the stipule is simply a leafy-like appendage that's kind of at the base of the petiole. So let me say that again. The stipule is just a simple leafy appendage at the base of the petiole. Might be a quiz question, might not. Just foreshadowing a little bit there. This blown up diagram here is going to depict transpiration through the stomata on the leaf. And during this process, CO2 is taken in and water and oxygen are released. Now, many of us remember as kids the old saying that the trees do the opposite of humans. So that is to they take in the carbon dioxide and give us the oxygen, where we're taking in oxygen and blowing out carbon dioxide. And that's correct. Well, we can't have a discussion about trees without briefly talking about the magic, in my opinion, that is chlorophyll. This is a complex molecule that contains chloroplasts, which carry out photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is the amazing conversion of sunlight into chemical energy like glucose, cellulose starches, and more that the plant can use as food to actually grow. Incidentally, as someone who loves pancakes with real maple syrup, I appreciate the chemical energy created by hard maple trees and their sap which allows me to eat delicious maple syrup. Now, this is going to be the extent that we're going to talk about the subject of chlorophyll because it really is a talk almost unto itself, a standalone talk, so to speak. But it is important to remember the power of photosynthesis and where it takes place, which is in the leaves of the tree. Okay, leaves, twigs, and branches. The twigs and branches, they're going to be transferring water and nutrients throughout the tree, providing structural support and strength, and they produce the leaves, the flowers, the fruits, and the nuts that we all love. Now, the anatomy of a twig, starting at the top, this is where you're going to have your terminal bud located at the tip of the twig. Typically, it's larger than the other lateral buds. It does not have a leaf scar, and it's also typically called the apical bud on the lead shoot at the top of the plant. Then you have the bud scales, which are there to provide some protection for the terminal and some lateral buds. Lateral buds will eventually grow into branches and flowers, and they're going to be formed along the nodes of the branch, as we see. As the name implies, the leaf scar is the scar left after the leaf falls from the twig, and they're distinguishable and one method of helping to actually identify trees. Lenticels are pores that penetrate the surface of the twig and facilitate that gas exchange, essentially uptake of CO2 during photosynthesis. Next, you're going to have the node and the internode, which is simply the area of the stem between nodes. And these are the places where one or more leaves or buds are born. And then finally, you have the pith. This is the inner core of the twig, and it functions in the storage and transport of nutrients to various parts of the tree. As the twig matures, the pith cells eventually are going to die and lose their functionality. And then as the soft, spongy pith cells die, they break down. And at maturity, they can actually be hollow or chambered. And elderberry is perhaps the greatest example of this. You get a lot of times elderberry stems that are hollow, and that's because the pith is broken down, and so that leaves that hollow stem. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind regarding twigs and branches. Trees grow up, not out. I should say trees grow out, not up. The terminal bud is the most active, and a part of that is the fact that it is the terminal bud that also delivers auxins that are generated by the plant that are naturally slow down those lateral buds when they're in close proximity. And then although lateral buds are often dormant, they can quickly change depending on what happens to the tree. So if pruning potentially removes the terminal bud, the lateral buds can jump in and fill that gap. I'm not going to spend hardly any time at all talking about this, but this is a really nice graphic. And this issue will come up again when we talk about pruning, but this branch trunk connection, keep in mind that the branch is connected to the trunk of a tree because of the interlocking nature of the branch and trunk tissue that occurs at that branch collar. So maybe some simple take-home messages here, which is that healthy branch attachments are U-shaped, not V-shaped. And then as we see from the next slide here, this picture is going to show a healthy branch union on the left with the promotion of that U shape, and then the much weaker V shape branch union on the right. Now, the trunk of the tree has an important role to play. It's going to transport water and nutrients up and down the tree and provide that structural support that I talked about earlier. Remember, the trunk is going to grow out, not up. So it's just going to keep growing out and get bigger and bigger and bigger and putting on those tree rings. Now, if we look at the anatomy of a tree trunk, starting from the outside and moving in, we have the outer bark, which protects the tree and kind of insulate it, and it's actually renewed from within. Then you have the inner bark, and that has the phloem to the outside, and that's transporting food in the form of sugars and amino acids and vitamins, hormones, all that sort of stuff. Then as we move inward, we have the cambium, And this is the extremely thin cylinder of meristematic tissue found just under the bark. And new cells are formed on both sides of the cambium each year. Continuing on, we have the heartwood, and that's found at the center of the tree, and it's composed mostly of old xylem tissue that's no longer living, but still retains that structural strength. And then sapwood is the living xylem inside the cambial layer that is actively involved in fluid transport up and down the tree. Phloem is to the outside, just beneath the bark, moves water and sap. The cambium, um, the tree rings found in trunks are the result of variations in growth rate, and that's the type of wood that's produced early and late in the growing season. And then within each ring, the lighter wood is spring wood, formed early in the season with the larger thin-walled cells. Then the darker, thick-walled cells of the summer wood are formed later in the year, and that's that tree ring that you would be able to count. And then we have the xylem, and the xylem essentially conducts water and nutrients throughout the tree to the leaves and provides some of the strength. The two components of xylem are sapwood and heartwood. So combined, they combined for the xylem. The sapwood is the new wood, certainly as newer rings of sapwood are laid down. Then the inner cells turn to the heartwood. And the heartwood is then the central supporting pillar of the tree. It is dead, but it will not decay if the outer layers are intact. And then, of course, lignin is the primary constituent of heart and sapwood, and is what's so hard to break down and what makes wood so strong. Okay, as we move to the roots of the tree, just a quick mention about the root collar. Again, this is where the main trunk of the tree thickens, and it's the point that should be planted at ground level. Field coordinators are told to preach to communities not planting too deep, because it's one of the easiest ways to kill trees, really. So if you have an opportunity to plant some trees, be sure to look for the root collar, and then be sure that it's planted at ground level. And if, a picture is worth 1,000 words, if your tree looks like a telephone pole going straight into the ground like the photo on the left, it's not planted correctly. We want to see that flare where the tree visibly thickens out at ground level on the right-hand side. That's an appropriately and correctly planted tree. Tree roots do a number of things. They anchor the tree into the ground. They're going to absorb and transport water and nutrients and oxygen to all the rest of the parts of the tree. They're going to store food. And from my perspective, it keeps soil in place, which is one of the main functions that roots do, and one of the things that they provide. So as this diagram shows, kind of looking down, the roots are going to grow where the conditions allow. And that branching structure you see is actually roots underground. And so the roots are growing, they run into the side of the house, all of a sudden, bam, they're going to move and go to someplace else. And so, if the moisture, the oxygen, temperature, nutrients of all of that is right where it needs to be, the tree's going to be happy. If it needs to go searching for any of those things, that's where you're going to have those root systems expanding. Now, keep in mind that there's different types of roots. Those absorbing roots are typically found in the upper 12 inches of soil, and as the name implies, they're absorbing water and nutrients. Then you're going to have the lateral roots, which are side roots that branch off from the main root. Then you have the sinker roots, which grow down from the lateral roots and really help to anchor the tree in place. And then, of course, that tap root, that's going to be the primary root of the tree. And those, I think of a tap root, something like a hickory that has a really predominant tap root, and what makes it kind of difficult to get seedlings from. Here we go. As this picture shows, roots are mostly towards the surface of the soil. And again, that's to facilitate that oxygen exchange. If we zoom in, let's see, yeah, there we go. If we zoom in just a little bit, we can see the thicker main roots eventually give way to those smaller, finer roots. And so I think this is a great picture that just shows, those main stems finally giving way to those feeder roots that can be right up there at the top. It wouldn't be a proper conversation if we didn't talk about flowers, fruits, and seeds. And so let's spend our last few minutes together talking about that. The flower is going to be the reproductive structure of flowering plants containing the male and female reproductive organs. Then you have fruit, and fruit is the mature, ripened ovary of a flowering plant that contains the seeds, and it functions to protect and disperse the seeds to ensure continuation of the species. So I always think of like a pear or an apple. So being that fruit, and we have that ripe fleshy that we get to eat and it's delicious, but the seeds are in there. And then finally, the seeds themselves, they're going to be the reproductive unit of the plant, contains several components. So a seed, has the embryo, the endosperm, and then the seed coat itself. And there's a great picture of a hazelnut where we've got um, the the root has essentially emerged and it started to put down some roots, and then we have the main stem there looking for sunlight. Now, angiosperms bear flowers and fruit, and they're characterized by having seeds enclosed within that fruit. And they really are the dominant plant group on the planet. Basically, 80% of all known living plants are angiosperms, and about 90% of all trees on Earth are angiosperms. But then you have the gymnosperms. Gymnosperms are this group of like woody perennial seed producing plants. They lack that protective outer covering which surrounds the seeds in most of the flowering plants. And so this is going to include things like conifers, cycads, ginkgo. That's maybe one of the most famous naked seed gymnosperms, the ginkgo tree. Okay, quiz time. That is going to wrap it up. Enzo is going to have the quiz that's going to come onto your screen. So take just a couple of minutes to answer some of those quiz questions, and then I'll come back with you all. We'll do a little bit of Q&A.
All righty. Thank you so much, Jeff. Yeah, as Jeff said, there should hopefully be a quiz popping up on your screen. So take a few minutes to answer those, please. And also feel free to drop any questions you have in the Q&A chat. I'll make sure to highlight those for when we have Jeff on here in a sec. All right, let's give it another minute or so here. Oh, shoot. Sorry if you can't see the quiz. We'll go over the answers here in just a bit. So, all righty. Well, thank you all for answering. So, question number one we had here: true or false? A U-shaped branch union is preferred over a V-shaped branch union. And it looks like most of you, about 94% of you, got the correct answer, which is true. That is true. Question number two, true or false? The stipule connects the leaf blade to the stem. It also looks like a little bit of a closer split there, but actually 34% got the correct answer, which is false. That is technically false. Question number three, true or false? The taproot grows out from the sides of the main root. Looks like pretty much everybody got that one. So that is false. Yep, the taproot does not grow out from the sides of the main root. Number four, true or false? The xylem contains both the sapwood and the heartwood. Again, looks like pretty much everybody got the correct answer on that one. That is true. The xylem does contain both the sapwood and the heartwood. And then question number five, pretty even split here, but the oldest known tree in the world is how old? And the correct answer is older than 5,000 years old. Yes, quite an old tree. So, yeah, thank you everybody for participating in this quiz here. Yeah, let's see here. We have some Q&A questions already in the chat if Jeff, you want to hop on here. The first one I'll bring here is from Paula, who asks, what is happening inside the tree during winter?
Great question. Great question. Well, first of all, the tree, kind of like a bear, is hibernating. So it goes into dormancy. And so part of that dormancy is it drops its leaves if it's a deciduous tree. And a lot of the moisture and nutrients are going to translocate back down into the root system. And so that's one of the things that's going on. Another is that the tree is converting some of those sugars into a type of antifreeze that keeps the plumbing of the tree continually keeping it unfrozen when it gets cold. Certainly, that's what part of the bark is for, to keep it protected and warm. But by converting those sugars to antifreeze, i.e., sap, which is, of course, what's so delicious. Um, um, and then a question just came in: why is it that sap collection does not hurt the trees? And that's because it's producing way more than it needs, essentially way more than it needs. So we get a siphon off the excess there. So those are a couple of things that are going on with the tree during the winter that allows it to survive and come back in the spring.
Oh. We have another question here. Is there a way to correct depth if a tree is planted too deep? If so, at what age?
Well, the answer is not really. I mean, you can excavate the dirt around it to pull the dirt back, but if you're in a low-lying area, it's just going to silt back in potentially. So it really is important to get that right at the time of planting. I have seen some where it was a week later before the quality control came through and identified some issues, and they went and dug them back up and put them into the right spot. If it's too late, you just kind of have to deal with it and hope for the best, I guess you could say. It's not that it's going to kill it necessarily right away. Trees can survive many years, decades even, planted at the improper depth. But for long-lived benefits, that's why we want to be sure that we get it right the first time around.
Another question here. How can you make sure limbs take on a U shape as opposed to a V shape?
Great question. Well, you can actually, for fruit trees, you can sometimes train them with little spacers to get the right type of joint. Otherwise, you're really looking at maybe through selective pruning and pruning out some of those limbs or those limbs that are starting to form those V shapes. And so really it's going to be a corrective pruning most likely type of a situation. And sometimes you just can't do anything about it. If it's too far up or if it's a place where you can't access it, you just kind of have to roll the dice.
Yeah, totally. Question here from Linda. Since the heartwood is dead and supports the structure, is that why it is important to have healthy layers outside the xylem, like the bark, to prevent disease or anything that would compromise the tree? She remembers seeing trees removed from childhood where all the heartwood was just goo.
Spot on. That's exactly right. What you just said. So that's why we like to have that protection. That's why if you get some big major gouges in the tree can try to fix that and grow over it. Sometimes it just leaves that spot in the middle of the open, and that's where it's just going to be exposed, and that's going to be an entry point for all sorts of things. So spot on, Linda. Yep.
Yeah. All Right. And I think the last question we have here is from Rick, who asked, I might have misread, but it looks like the presentation suggested covering the trunk with mulch, but also to keep the root flare exposed. Can you help me understand how both of those can be beneficial? And I will say we
I'm
will have an entire course on planting, so we'll go into much deeper detail on that. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'll just simply say, think of a moat or a donut. So yes, we want to have a mulch. We want to get that mulch down nice and thick, and 2 or 3 feet away from the trunk, so it's a nice donut or a bagel. But we don't want that mulch right up next to the base of the tree. We want to be leaving 2 or 3 inches of mulch, of empty space between the mulch and then the inside bark of the, or pardon me, the inside of the tree, the bark of the tree. So that's why we always talk about not mulching volcanoes, but mulching donuts or bagels or something like that. And so if you do it right, it'll provide all sorts of long-lived benefits, keeping the soil moist, but of course keeping the lawnmowers away, which is the greatest issue in our urban environments. So.
So we in the urban forestry field tend to get very hungry a lot, so that's why a lot of the analogies are food-based. All right. Well, I think that's all I've got for questions. So thank you so much, Jeff. We really appreciate your time and your knowledge and expertise. Thank you very much. So I think we're just going to go ahead and move right along to our next section. Connie Cowan, who is our program manager in Illinois, is going to talk to us a little bit about tree identification. So go ahead and take it away, Connie.
Can you see my screen okay?
Let's give it a sec. Not yet. Oh, here we go. Yep, we can see your screen.
Great. Thank you, Enzo, and thank you, Jeff, for that wonderful presentation. Again, I'm Connie Cowan. I'm the Illinois Program Manager for Trees Forever, and we're going to go over some of the basics of tree identification, focusing on some common trees in Iowa that are also common in Illinois and throughout the Midwest. So tree identification, it's easier than it seems. You just need the right resources and to take the time to be observant and make note of some of the various characteristics and features of the tree. It's like asking the tree, who are you? So a good way to get started in tree identification is working with a dichotomous key. Dichotomy means two parts. And using a dichotomous key is basically looking at a series of choices and determining which one is correct. These choices describe characteristics of trees, starting with broad categories that get more narrowed down to more specific choices until you determine the correct species. You can use guidebooks with dichotomous keys, or you can find these plant keys online. The Arbor Day Foundation and Iowa State University both have online plant keys. I also like to use a website called Illinois Wildflowers. It has really good descriptions of trees and other plants. You'll want to become more familiar with some of the common terminology to work through a dichotomous key. And we'll go through some of that process and give you a better understanding of what that looks like and some of the terms and characteristics of the trees you'll want to know. So the first question you'll likely see in a dichotomous key for trees is the question of whether it's a deciduous tree or coniferous tree. Deciduous trees are broadleaf trees or shade trees. These are the trees that drop their leaves in the fall and are bare throughout the winter. They have a variety of flowers and fruits and include a variety of trees overall. Our coniferous trees, these are the evergreen trees or cone-bearing trees, where the cones serve as the function of a flower. These are the trees we typically utilize for windbreaks and usually maintain their leaves or needles all winter long. And I say usually because there are some deciduous conifers. These are cone-bearing trees that drop their needles on an annual basis. And there are a few of these tree species that you'll come across. So here are some images of these two categories of trees. You see the tree on the left is an example of a deciduous tree or broadleaf tree. You see its leaves are changing color, so it's likely fall and they're going to drop soon, while the tree on the right is a coniferous tree. It's fully green with its needles, and while it's common for conifers to drop some of their needles on an annual basis, overall a majority of the needles remain on the tree. Next, we'll take a look at some characteristics for deciduous trees. The leaf arrangement or leaf pattern is an important characteristic when identifying trees. The arrangement we see on the left is opposite, where the leaves are located across from each other on the stem in pairs, while on the right, the leaves are alternate or staggering on the stem. Determining whether the tree has opposite or alternate branching will help you narrow down your tree species significantly. There are a lot more tree species with alternate branching and leaf arrangement than there are opposite. The trees that fit in the category of opposite can be remembered by the acronym MAD horse, where MAD, M-A-D, stands for maple, ash, dogwood, and horse is for horse chestnut or buckeye trees. All these species have opposite branching, and this is just a guideline. Depending on where you are, you may come across other trees with opposite branching. Bush honeysuckle comes to mind, which is a non-native shrub that's invaded our local woodlands. And you may also come across some other non-native trees in the landscape or a park that were planted that have that opposite arrangement. So here's another example of opposite and alternate. You see the image on the left has those leaves that are staggered along the branch, and then the image on the right has the leaves directly across from each other on the branch. So here we'll take a look at leaf shapes and characteristics. The leaf characteristics are one of the easier ways to identify a tree. So learning your trees during the summer months is a good way to get started and become more familiar with tree species. Once you become more familiar with the leaves, you can take note of twigs, buds, bark, fruit, and overall tree form. These characteristics are all very helpful to learn your trees, and especially during winter months when you don't have the leaves available. So looking at the images on this slide, at the top, we have our opposite and alternate arrangements. Below that, we have overall leaf composition. The first image on the left is a simple leaf. So we have this just single leaf consisting of one blade and one stem, where the compound leaves are a leaf that's made up of multiple leaflets attached to the single leaf stem. So we have a couple different examples of that. This first compound leaf is called a palmately compound leaf. So that's where we have individual leaflets that all connect at the same central location on the stem, similarly to your hand with your fingers that all connect to the center at your palm. And to the right of that, we have a pinnately compound leaf. And this arrangement is made up of leaflets that all attach along a central axis. And on the far right is doubly compound. So this leaf here, the arrangement is made up of leaflets that both attach along a central axis and then divide again along this secondary leaf stem. And our next set of leaves will look a little bit more closely at the leaf edges or margins. So this first example, we have an entire margin. So the edge of this leaf is smooth without any teeth or lobes. Then the next two leaves are toothed. So we have serrate on this first one. So we have these sharply pointed teeth along the edge of the leaf that point somewhat upwards in direction. And then the leaf next to it is an example of dentate, where we have teeth that are sharp and point more outwards. The next two leaves show examples of lobes, which are these outward projections of the leaves. The gaps in between the lobes are called sinuses. So the leaf lobes, they can be pointed or rounded. They can vary in arrangement. Here we have a palmately lobed leaf, again, where each of these lobes connect at a central point. And then we have a pinnately lobed leaf, where the lobes are more or less connecting at this central axis of the leaf. And then the bottom set here, these are characteristics you would find in evergreen trees. The first being scale-like, and then these other three are needle-like types of arrangements, from single needles to bundles and clusters. So here are some larger illustrations of, again, this first image is the simple leaf where you just have the single blade. And then we have our two variations of lobed simple leaves, the palmately lobed leaf and pinnately lobed leaf. And then we have our two variations of compound leaves, the palmately compound leaf with the individual leaflets connecting at the single point, and pinnately compound leaf. So here are some examples. On the left is a white oak leaf, which is a simple leaf with rounded lobes. And a simple leaf can have lobes or teeth. Simple just means that it's not compound. And then here are our two examples of compound leaves. The top photo is of the buckeye tree that shows the palmately compound leaf. And then the bottom photo is a honey locust showing our pinnately compound leaf. So you might be wondering how you differentiate between simple leaves and compound leaves. So here's a close-up of the river birch tree. The leaves here, if you take a close look at where the leaf stem meets the stem of the branch, you'll see a little bud here, and that's how you'll determine that it's a single leaf. If this was a compound leaf, the bud would be located at the base of this group of leaflets. So here we have a number of different leaves. We're going to have a tree identification quiz at the end of this class. But for now, I just want to take a closer look at some of the key features and characteristics of these leaves. So for leaf A, this is a large, broad leaf that is lobed. This leaf has 5 lobes with a toothed margin. And for B, this leaf is triangular in shape and also has teeth along the leaf edge or margin. Leaf C, you can see this is a very distinct heart shape and has a smooth leaf edge or margin. Leaf D is our palmately compound leaf. We have 5 leaflets that are all attached at a single point. And leaf E is pinnately compound, where we have these numerous leaflets all attaching along the leaf stem. F has teeth along its margin, it's more oval in shape. And if you notice the base of this leaf, it's asymmetrical, where it's a little bit uneven at the base, and that's typical of a couple different species you may come across. And then G, we have our example of a doubly compound leaf. The leaflets arrange both along that main stem and also along these secondary stems. So next, I want to go through some of the common trees you'll find in Iowa as well as Illinois. The first tree mentioned here is the ash tree. Ash trees have opposite branching with pinnately compound leaves of 5 or more leaflets. The seeds are elongated samaras. They look like little canoe paddles. And this tree is currently restricted from planting. That's due to the prevalence of the emerald ash borer, which has decimated our ash tree populations. This is an exotic insect, first discovered in Michigan in 2002 and has killed millions of ash trees throughout North America. Next is maple trees. You may recognize this leaf shape from the leaf symbol of the Canadian flag. Iowa has 5 native maple trees. Those include box elder, black maple, sugar maple, red maple, and silver maple. The seed of maple trees is a samara. This is also referred to as a helicopter from the way it falls off the trees and spins its way down to the ground. And most maple trees have simple leaves with various lobes and teeth, but the box elder maple tree has a compound leaf made up of 3 to 5 leaflets, and that's the image you see in the bottom left photo. Here we have oak trees, a very common tree in Iowa. There are a number of native oak species, burr, white, swamp white, black, northern pin, and red are a few of the more common ones. This is one of our largest trees in our eastern deciduous forests. Their seeds are acorns, and oak trees are very important trees in our landscape, hosting a variety of wildlife. This is an image of the tulip tree. It gets its name from this large tulip-like flower that blooms in early summer. It also has a very unique leaf shape with 4 lobes and somewhat of a flat top. You can kind of see it over here on the left. We call that truncate. This is a rather large tree known for its tall form and very long straight trunk. Here we have the hackberry tree. This tree, one of the most distinctive characteristics of it is its corky or warty bark. It has this bumpy-like appearance. These bumps start to develop with age of the trees, so the bark may be somewhat smooth when the trees are young. They also have simple leaves that are toothed along the margins. And the photo on the upper left shows a very common gall that is found on the leaves of hackberry. It's caused by an insect. It's not harmful to the tree, it's just a growth, but it's quite common to see in hackberry trees. Here is the ginkgo tree. Ginkgos are not native, but have become a common tree planted in our landscapes due to its ability to tolerate the tough conditions of urban environments. They're native to China and considered a living fossil. They're the only member of a group of ancient plants that predate dinosaurs. Geckos are considered dioecious, which means that they have separate male and female trees. And you typically only see the male trees planted in landscapes. The females produce a seed that's fleshy and fruit-like, which can be quite messy and smelly. The leaves of ginkgos are unique. They have this fan-like shape, and they also turn a nice yellow in the fall. And here are some oak acorns. This is from the red oak. The acorn is the nut produced by an oak tree. It's the fruit of the oak tree and serves as a seed for the new growth. Knowing your acorns will help you identify your oak tree species And knowing your various tree fruits will aid in tree ID. So here are a number of the coniferous tree species you may come across, which have unique characteristics. The arborvitae or white cedars have more scale-like leaves that are flatter and soft and kind of overlap. The juniper can have both those scale-like and all-shaped leaves. These are sharp and stiff and kind of prickly to the touch. Fir trees have these single linear needles. They're a little flat in shape, while the spruce needles are also single but sharper. And then we have pine trees where their needles are bundled. Those bundles are known as fascicles. And then we have our larch needles, which come in clusters. So some common coniferous trees in Iowa would include our pine trees. The needles can be in bundles of various numbers, 2, 3, or 5. The white pine tree has 5 needles in its bundle. And an easy way to remember that is white has 5 letters in its name. Spruce trees are primarily introduced in Iowa, but one way to distinguish those from firs is their needles are short, square, sharp, and single. So all S's, where the firs are friendly. Those needles will be a little softer and flat and easier on the touch. So our only native pine tree in Iowa is the eastern white pine. The image here shows those elongated needles in those bundles of 5, as well as those long cones. Are typically 4 to 5 inches long. And then that third image on the right, that is of a Colorado spruce. It's not native, but it's commonly planted. And you can see just from that image, those short, sharp, pointed needles. So now if you're ready for the quiz, you're welcome to jot these different tree species into the chat box. I'll go ahead and go through these and talk a little bit more about the species. So if you know what A is, go ahead and put that in the chat box. This is that large broadleaf lobe tree with its 5 lobes. And this tree is more recognizable by its mottled peeling bark that comes in gray, green, tan, and white. So that tree there is the sycamore tree. It's like a couple people got it right. And then
A lot of guesses, but maple.
Oh, okay. I could see that definitely. And then B, again, this is that triangular shaped leaf with the teeth along the edges. And you'll see this tree growing close to water. So that would be cottonwood. And then C, we have our heart-shaped leaf. This is a smaller size tree known for its pink blossoms in the spring. Yep, and I see a couple answers of redbud. That's correct. And then D, this is our palmately compound leaf. This is a smaller size tree with large green to yellow flowers in the spring, which become a shiny brown nut that looks like a deer's eye, just to give you a hint. Yep, and I see some buckeye answers. That's correct. Now for E, our pinnately compound leaf. This is a large tree that produces round yellow to green husked nuts, and the wood is very valuable on these trees. If we have any guesses for E, walnut is correct, black walnut. And F, this is the leaf with the asymmetrical base. These are rather large trees known for their arching branches and more of a vase shape appearance. And Elm is correct on that one. G is our doubly compound leaf. This is a rather large leaf. It can be 1 to 3 feet long. The trees form a seed pod on them, and it's one of the last trees to leaf out. I've actually heard this tree described as the naked tree just because it takes so long to leaf out.
Connie, is that considered one tree, that whole thing, or one leaf? Is that whole thing considered one leaf, or how does that work?
Yeah, yeah, that is one leaf. That's the
Okay.
one we describe as doubly compound because the leaf is dividing into leaflets both along that main stem and then again on those secondary stems. So I did see a couple of the correct answers. This is the Kentucky coffee tree. It would look somewhat similar to a locust, but the locust doesn't have that doubly compound leaf. So nice job. There's a lot of people know their trees. So with that,
Good work.
we can take some questions.
Yeah. So we have another set of questions here for people, just some short answer if anyone wants to look into those. But while we wait for those to kind of fill in, the one question I have set up right now is, could you explain a little bit more about what the difference is between a simple and an entire leaf?
So the simple leaf, that just means that it's not compound. So it is made up of that one leaf, where the compound leaf has multiple leaflets. Um, Entire is describing the leaf edge. So that's what we call the leaf margin. So that just means that the outside of the edge is smooth and doesn't have any teeth or lobes.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions for Connie as far as tree identification goes? Feel free to drop those in the chat if you do. I guess I'll pick your brain a little bit, Connie, as we wait. Some of the questions we have up right now. Do you have like a preferred tree ID tool? Is there a book, an app? Is there something you prefer to use?
Well, like I had mentioned, I tend to use in Illinois a website called Illinois Wildflowers, and it has trees, plants, grasses, anything that you want to look up as far as plants in Illinois, and it has really good descriptions. It'll let you know the native range of the plants, and also there's usually notes at the bottom of the web page for each plant that helps you kind of key in on certain characteristics. So that's my favorite one to use.
Okay, totally. Do you have a favorite kind of tree?
I think my favorite tree would have to be the bur oak. It's just such an amazingly beautiful tree.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, for those in the chat, we will send out a link to that website in my follow-up email, so everyone can access that. All righty. Any other questions for Connie, or are we all good? Nora suggests iNaturalist is a good tree ID app. Yeah, I've heard of
Yeah,
that
I
one.
like
That's
that
pretty good.
also.
All righty. Well, seeing no further questions, thank you so much, Connie, for your time and expertise. We really appreciate it. All righty, everybody. Well, that brings us to pretty much the end of our first Tree Keeper session. A couple things of housekeeping before we end for the day. Our next session is going to be next week, Tuesday, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. We'll be hearing from Shayla Claiborne of our Des Moines team and James Partridge of our Cedar Rapids teams, who will be talking about tree planting and tree care and pruning, respectively. Before we end for today, I want to go over our website real quick. So let me share my screen here. All right, hopefully you can all see my screen here with our Trees Forever website. So I just want to walk you guys really quickly through this. So this is our wonderful, wonderful website. It will be getting revamped here sometime in the future, but for now, I want to direct you to one of the most important couple links we have is if you go to treesforever.org and you click on this volunteer link, it will take you to this portal where you can open up volunteer opportunities in Iowa, Illinois. You can sort by in-person opportunities, virtual learning opportunities, and just find out what planting opportunities, what webinars, what different ways to get involved are in your area. Same with the events calendar. This is a more holistic view of all the upcoming events we've got. So we've got our tree keeper sessions here. We have a 1 million trees launch party coming up on Thursday in Des Moines if you're in the area. Tree voucher sessions for those of you in Cedar Rapids. Lots of opportunities here. And as we get closer to the planting season, we'll have these volunteer opportunities for you to get involved and plant trees with us. The other website I want to point you guys to is treesforever.org/TK resources. And I will be sending all these links out in the next email I send to you guys. But basically, if you want to access this, just fill in your name real quick. This just kind of tells us who's accessing this. And then once you submit that information to us, wait for it to load here. This is our TreeKeeper resource library. So here you'll have access to all of our presentation, our slide decks, lots of different publications, handouts, stuff like that. Our recordings will be right here, usually through YouTube, and I'll send a direct link to those as well. But basically, any information you might need as a tree keeper, you'll be able to find here at treesforever.org/TK resources. And I think that's about it. Yeah. But like I said, feel free to poke around the Trees Forever website. It's a great resource, lots of stuff there. And other than that, that brings us to our conclusion tonight. So I just want to thank all of you for taking the time to learn with us tonight. I also want to give a huge thank you to Connie and Jeff for their great work today. We really appreciate your time and your expertise on these matters, and we appreciate it. So thank all of you for joining, and I will be looking forward to seeing you all next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.